I'm going to tell you a story called The Milk Truck. Now, first you have to understand I am Cajun French, so I'm talking with my hands. And also you have to understand that I'm quite an adventurous soul. So I began, if you can imagine, when I was 5 years old, I decided to jump off the roof of my house more than once. And the way that I would do that to soften that landing was to throw my pillow out of the window and climb out of the upstairs window that led to the lower roof. And then I would jump over the hedge and land on my pillow. And so the story I'm going to tell you is when I was 14 years old, and I, growing up in a small little town, Louisiana, of about 6,000 people, at 14, you can get your farm license. So I wanted to drive. And it just so happened that my 15-year-old sister had a boyfriend that had a truck. And his carrot, so to say, was when he would come to visit and have his time with the sister, he would ask me if I wanted to drive his truck. Well, he just so happened to have one of those old milk trucks, sort of like a Chevy 57, but it was all painted white, and it had a 3-shifter on the floor where your arm went all the way to the dashboard and all the way back to the seat and then all the way back up to the dashboard. Now imagine a 80-pound, 14-year-old that's barely 5 foot tall and sitting at the wheel of this milk truck. So he comes over to visit with my sister, and it's midnight, and what better to do to get rid of me to ask if I want to drive the truck? So I take off all on my own, and I'm in this little bitty town, and I'm driving around. So I'm able to push in the clutch. I can get it in first gear, second gear, but that's the best I can do. And I drive around and I hit the railroad tracks. And I can't get over them without popping the clutch. And I try, and I can't get my foot all the way to the floor. And I give it the gas, and then it dies. And it rolls back. And then I do it again, put it back in first gear, and try to get it back over the tracks, and it dies. And so I do this a few times, and then I realize I am not going to get over the railroad track. So what I have to do is get momentum. So every time it dies, to be going fast enough that it rolls back fast enough that I can eventually turn the truck around. So I do this over and over and over again until I finally get it halfway around that I can finally put it in first gear and turn around on the street and make it back. Well, there's an old saying, if you're in a little town and you're out at midnight, you're up to mischief. There's nothing going on that's any good if it's after midnight. And that was the truth. So the only one out on the road were the cops. And of course, I run into the cops. And I'm barely have my head over the steering wheel. And they slowly come and take a left turn around the block. I try to outrun them. And so I turn off the lights of the truck because it's a known fact that when you come to a stop sign, if someone's coming the other way, you turn off your lights. And if there's lights, then you know to stop. But if not, you just keep going through. So I proceeded to turn and make all these various pathways back to the house and just gun it up over the curb, knowing that I just need to give as much gas as I can before it dies. And there it did. Jump the curb into the grass, dies, and I duck down to hide as the cop car comes slowly in front of the house. And that's the end of my story of my first night of driving the milk truck.